everyone, this is Callimara here, and no, it's not calamari. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new to the pond, go ahead and take a dive. You might like it here. So, you guys would know the drill. If you've been following my video these past few weeks, you know that I've been kind of obsessing over Baldur's Gate 3, and today we get to the final male companion that you obtain from Act 1, excluding Halsin because he wasn't intended originally to become a romanceable companion, someone you can recruit, but not really a box art companion type thing. Okay, anyway, Wyll, we're talking about Wyll today. So, if you're interested to see my take on his modern design and just a discussion of his character, or you just need background noise to draw, then make sure you stay tuned, and let's get right into it. Recently, I've been using the GAOMON M1230 to draw, and it's a pretty solid pen tablet if you are looking for a pen tablet that's pretty budget friendly, but packs a punch, I would say. So the tablet itself comes with 13 express keys plus 16 programmable soft keys, which gives you a total of 29 keys that you can use to program your shortcuts. And I find that super helpful because I personally use a lot of shortcuts on my keyboard, and it's a bit of a hassle to switch back and forth between my keyboard to the tablet when I'm drawing, but here I can just cram everything in there, which is very helpful. And it also has a pretty decent working area. It's not too big, not too small. It definitely gives you a good ratio from the screen to the tablet itself, and it has a pretty good response time. The pen itself is battery free and instantly syncs to the tablet, and it also comes with 8,192 levels of pen pressure, which is about standard for all GAOMON devices, which is to say is very good. It also has tilt recognition, which is very helpful if you want to do some pencil shading. Personally, it's pretty insignificant, but because I'm used to working with professional grade tools, I do notice a bit of a lag between the pen movement and your hand movement. So if you are someone used to working with higher grade tools, you might notice that lag and it might throw you off a little bit. But if you are beginner to intermediate, this might be a solid choice tablet for you because it's definitely a step up from the regular tablet because of all the functionality and different programmable keys, and the performance is actually quite good. So if you are currently looking for a tablet but you don't want to break the bank too much, I would recommend this tablet to you. And if you're interested in getting one for yourself, you can check out the links in my description. And now let's talk about Wyll Ravengard. So, a bit of human error. I completely forgot to hit record time-lapse in this file, so my sketching process for Wyll went completely unrecorded. I'm very upset because I was so proud of how Wyll turned out in my sketch, and I think he probably came out the best out of my other two attempts, but there's no use crying over spilled milk, I guess. I'll just go right ahead and tell you how I went capturing about his likeness. To draw Wyll, you can start with a round face with very soft edges. Among the male companions of Baldur's Gate 3, Wyll definitely has the softest, which gives him a very youthful appearance, which makes sense since he is canonically the youngest of the companions. So he's the baby of the group and also has a baby face. Wyll also has very nice thick eyebrows, and another key feature you would want to get right is his nose, which, like Gale, has a bit of a bump at the top with wide nostrils. Wyll also has the most gorgeous droopy eyes that I've ever seen on a character model before, and his eyes are definitely my favorite aspect of his face. In my opinion, I actually find them much more sultry than Astarion's. There's just something about that eye shape that really gets to me, and it's even more gorgeous because of his luscious long eyelashes. It just makes him so pretty, and you guys know that I love pretty men. And of course, we can't forget his big juicy lips and some nice scruff around his mouth. He doesn't have a full beard like Gale, but he's got some well-groomed stubble. This is a detail that I almost forgot, so please don't forget the scars that he has on his face. For his hair, Wyll has a combination of side shaves and cornrow braids. I kind of wish they kept the original concept for his hair though, because the low ponytail for his braids is nice and all, but I don't know, I just think this looks so much more majestic. For his modern design, I knew he was probably going to be a humanitarian worker of some sort, like a volunteer that goes to build houses or provide clean water access in impoverished areas. But then I remembered that Wyll also comes from a noble background, so of course he's going to be a rich Nepo baby. For those of you who don't play the game, Wyll Ravengard is the son of Duke Ravengard, who is like a major political figure and like the head of the security detail, I guess you could say, like the security force of Baldur's Gate, the city in the game Baldur's Gate. But due to circumstances in Wyll's backstory, he ended up being kind of estranged from his father. But anyway, I wanted to carry over that little detail in my modern redesign. So here, Wyll is a Nepo baby, but he uses his money to start up his own NGO for charity work. Because of that, I envision him as the down-to-earth, hard-working CEO type who dresses casually and likes to help out wherever he can. He's definitely the type of person who, despite his wealth and status, prefers to get his hands dirty, go out into the field in person, meet people, and see how things go firsthand. Because if you've had one conversation with Wyll, you know that this man is the only stable person in camp and probably humanity's last hope. So to better reflect this, I dressed him in a simple dress shirt with his sleeves rolled up, ready to pitch in, along with some simple trousers, belt, and shoes because he's humble like that. He did recently have a falling out with his dad, just like his original BG3 self, so he probably doesn't have the access to luxuries like he once did anyway. But he doesn't mind that. He's determined to make something of himself out of his father's shadow, who is a great man that he deeply admires despite their strained relationship. And maybe he needs to secure more funds for his NGO and charity work, right? So he meets Mizora, who's this like super successful businesswoman who has a lot of funds, who is willing to be his investor. But she's influencing his operations in ways he disagrees with, but is powerless to stop because they signed a contract. I decided to color his shirt red because I just think he looks really good in red, and because it's the color of his armor the first time we meet him in Act 1. It's also a reference to him turning into a devil, depending on your choices, by the way. Fun fact, Wyll's silhouette and armor design is inspired by Spanish bullfighters. According to the BG3 concept book, for his silhouette and armor design, we found inspiration in toreadors, Spanish bullfighters who, like Wyll, move light on their feet with a dancer's precision. His starting armor is layered but still fitted for mobility. I colored his lanyard this rich indigo color to help it stand out from the red tones in his design, and I kept his fake eye, but I imagine in modern times it would just be a glass eye that maybe Mizora gives him that he isn't aware has a little camera inside. I colored the iris of the glass eye gray as an homage to his bloodstone eye in the game. Maybe in modern times he lost his eye because he happened to be volunteering in a war-torn area and inadvertently got caught in an attack. So let's talk about my first impressions of Wyll when I first met him. Obviously, when he showed up, I was all like, whoa, cool! A paladin would be perfect for my party. Yeah, when I saw Wyll and how he acted, I genuinely thought he was a paladin and was so excited to add him to my party because on my first playthrough, my party is full of squishy characters and I need a tank to absorb all the blows for them. Yes, I technically had Lae'zel, but her constant bickering with Shadowheart stressed me out, and Shadowheart was more helpful in keeping my team alive than Lae'zel. I guess I had unrealistic expectations about Wyll's character because the first time I saw him, I was immediately reminded of Zank from the Dungeons & Dragons movie, who actually was a paladin. So imagine my surprise when I finally add him to my party and realized he was a warlock. My first thought was, another Gale? And honestly, I probably could have changed his class to a paladin at any point, but that would just wreck his entire storyline. But thinking back on it, I should have done that for that very reason. Okay, so question. In D&D, if someone was a warlock and they decide to change classes to paladin, or even decides to multi-class as a paladin, which makes it even more chaotic, in lore, not like on a mechanical meta standpoint, does that mean they can just ditch their devil contract? Or do you have to do like a prolonged multi-arc quest to do that? Technically speaking, I guess it's just about getting the devil to let you out of your contract, right? But would relying on divine power for your new class, like, void the contract or neutralize the evil devil magic? If you have a blessing from a god, surely they have the power to null and void a devil contract, right? But either way, I'm still at the point in the game where I need to save Wyll's dad from the Iron Throne prison, but I'm too scared to enter it because people have said you only have 6 turns to save all the prisoners before Gortash blows up the facility, and there's a ton of minions in there that'll try to attack you. Plus, if you make Wyll break his contract with Mizora, she just makes the rescue even harder for you, even though I really want the Wave Maiden armor you get from the Avenge the Drowned quest. I don't know, I'm just trying to find my courage for it by meandering around for Dribble's body parts. If you are currently playing Baldur's Gate 3, are you also scared of finishing the 3rd act because you don't want the game to end and everything just feels so final? Like, how are we finished already? I still want to do at least 2 more acts with these characters. But at the same time, I'm also looking at people's clips on TikTok taking on these crazy difficult fights, and I'm like, no thanks. It's a mix of those things, I think. But anyway, getting back to Wyll, if you want to romance a companion with a lot of Riz, who is also completely unproblematic, aside from the fact that, you know, he sold his soul to a devil, he's the guy for you. Now, this may be a hot take, but I'd argue Wyll's romance is kinda as vanilla as you could get. Despite even the game itself continually insisting that Gale is the vanilla choice, I think it's actually Wyll. Not that it's a bad thing at all. Vanilla is great. It's unironically my favorite flavor, and also you can never go wrong with vanilla, okay? It's one flavor that will never flop. Just like Wyll, the man has no issues or red flags, aside from, again, selling his soul to a devil and being a pretty big hypocrite about not dealing with devils while still morally grandstanding about it. Well, okay, so maybe he does have a bit of a hero complex, but you know, that's never hurt anyone aside from himself. I'd argue Wyll is also the only character that has a good family life, or like a good relationship with their family at least. Unless you were able to keep Shadowheart's parents alive, which I was not able to. But yeah, despite Wyll being estranged from his father, they both still care deeply for each other, and I think it's so sweet. My only issue with Wyll is that he's so underrated. Hardly anyone ever talks about him, and I think that's kind of a crime. See, Astarion gets talked about all the time because everyone hardcore thirsts over him, and even Gale gets some spotlight because he's so polarizing. Either people hate him or love him. Wyll, on the other hand, is so undeniably a good guy that he doesn't attract the feral young adult demographic that are into toxic Wattpad men, but also doesn't get attention from haters because there's nothing to hate about him. Except maybe that really awkward first romance scene where he's practicing his dancing. You know, I'm still not sure if that scene was meant to show him as being a really good dancer or a really bad one. I really can't tell, but I do know that I felt intensely uncomfortable being there. I failed my D20 save against Frightened, being shown romantic interest. Either way, There isn't really much discourse around Wyll, and he was even harder to find reference pictures for, say, from opening Baldur's Gate 3 myself and staring at his character model, which all my friends know I would just end up playing Baldur's Gate 3 instead of getting any work done, because all the pictures I found of him are close-ups of his headshot in the game's cover art. Which is kind of messed up, guys. You should be making more Wyll thirst traps, like, honestly. In my first campaign run, I actually had Wyll in my main party instead of Gale, and here are some things I noticed about him. He dies so much. Like, granted, he's a spellcaster, he's not meant to be in melee combat, so why dub yourself after your sword when you're really not that good at using it? Yeah, he's just as squishy as Gale is, but Gale at the very least is very upfront about not being good in melee, so I know to put him on a nice wizard perch. Granted, the most he died was in my Grimforge fight because he kept falling into lava, both in the fight against Nier and the adamantine golem. This is a personal gripe I have with Wyll, but he lost my short sword of First Blood, which is a very good sword once you find it in the game, and I'm very upset about it. I literally don't know where it went. Last time I was equipping it on him, and then I go to check on him again, and it's not there. Where did it go? Did you get eaten by a mimic while I was looking away? What's going on, Wyll? Another thing about Wyll that I find so ironic is that he loves to needle Astarion. It's so hilarious that being the most lawful good character in the camp, he's always the one starting beef with Astarion. Astarion doesn't even do anything to him, aside from existing as a vampire spawn. And speaking of inter-character interactions, Wyll is always trying to rizz up the ladies as well, which makes sense considering his highest stat is his charisma. He's so gombal. That's an Indonesian term for guys who are always trying to rizz up every woman he meets with sweet nothings. And whereas most of Gale's rizz is purely unintentional and or coming straight from his tism, Wyll's rizz is all game. But he is genuinely very sweet and humble though, at least when you're talking to him. I love hearing what he has to say about other companions' questline progressions because he's always so concerned and willing to help. I also think it's such brilliant subversive writing to have the warlock who literally draws his powers from hell to be the lawful good folk hero, while the actual paladin in the game is a lawful evil cultist who wants to commit war crimes against anyone that disagrees with them. And update! I just saved Wyll's father! Between the time it took me to write in the script that I was scared about having to do the timed quest and now, which took approximately a day, I admit, I succeeded! It was horrible and stressful, especially since I turned down Mizora's deal and I've been forewarned that she would make the rescue much harder and I lost some people along the way. But I came, I conquered, and I got that gorgeous armor I've been pining after. Also, Mizora, you didn't really do a good job of making my job harder, let's be honest. I am a bit torn though, because my old armor, which is the graceful cloak with cat's grace and increased jump height, is so good for getting around, which when you're a monk, you need to get around. But this one has cold and fire resistance, and okay. No, I'll justify it, it's fine. I'll switch outfits when I need my graceful cloak. But the way I would check myself out on every reflective surface I come across in this armor, Astarion would be proud. Also, how do you like my legendary trident weapon? I am not proficient with it, but it deals extra thunder damage and lets you clear away clouds and people with Zephyr Break. I'm waiting until I can select another feat when I level up to be proficient with martial weapons. And if you're wondering where you can find it, you have to piss the genie off in the Circus of Last Days by pickpocketing the ring he's using to rig the Wheel of Fortune. And he'll send you back in time to Dinosaur Land, and the weapon will be in a locked chest right next to the portal to get back home. So make sure you send a rogue character with buffs for stealth to sneak past all the dinosaurs, and to lockpick the chest because it's a pretty high DC. For me, I just sent Astarion. I do want shoes that would match this armor better though, like sandals or something. But the stats on these boots are so good. Yes, Baldur's Gate 3 is as much as an exploration game as it is a dress-up game to me. What of it? Anyway, back to Wyll. You're probably not wondering this, but I'll tell you anyway, but I did not romance Wyll. Wyll for me, ironically, is like Gale to the Gale haters. The way he goes about romance reminds me of guys who have put me in uncomfortable situations I've had IRL. Because while I have no idea what guys in other countries are like, Wyll is a lot like Indonesian guys who I would not trust at all. And I know Wyll is as much like those guys as Gale is like an incel nice guy, but I just can't help it and think we'd be much better off as friends. So unfortunately, Wyll has to stay in this friend zone for me, even though he does look like a kicked puppy when you reject him. It's fine, I'm a cold, heartless woman. I will say that I haven't really seen a lot of people romancing Wyll on their playthroughs. I don't know if it's just my FYP in particular, but most of the clips I've seen have either been overwhelmingly Astarion, a handful of Gales, and Karlax with the occasional Shadowheart, but almost no Wyll at all. Heck, I've even seen a Lae'zel romance. So I can't really say how his romance goes because I never got past the first heart event. But I do know he says something very sweet and poetic when you ask him what the two of you are to him after you're together. But regardless, Wyll as a person has such a great attitude, always looking to help others even though he needs help himself. He's also very fun. If you find the dead spider in the Gauntlet of Shar, you have the option to lick it, and every companion has a different reaction to it. Gale just goes full cat dad and tells you to stop licking the damn thing. Astarion is like, no kink shaming here, but also snarks you if you do it again. And Wyll tries to gentle parent you, and then laughs at your agony when you don't learn. Though I will say, pun unintended, that Wyll kind of has the biggest hero complex out of all the companions, if not the only one with a hero complex. But I guess that just comes with the territory of being the resident lawful good companion. Which is ironic because Gale was the one that was based off of typical protagonist characters. And it might also be because he's canonically the youngest companion. Like, the others are all 30 and up, whereas Wyll is only 24 or 26. So it could just be because he still has that youthful delusion that you're invincible. I don't know. He's definitely got the energy of an excitable child. Anyway, here is the final result. Let me know what you think of Wyll's modern look in the comments below. Also, let me know if you want to see me do modern interpretations of the other BG3 companions. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in the pond for a while. I hope your skin didn't get too pruny. Big shout out to my lovely pond dwellers on Patreon. If you want to become a pond dweller and get early access to my content, then join my Patreon. If you want more from me, then please follow me on all my social media. If you want to submit fan art or chat with me, join my Discord server. And if you want more of my stories, check out my Wild Words series here on YouTube because that will make me really happy. All the links are in my description and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye!